right, well, welcome back to another episode of Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt, and with me, of course, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. Eric, we are a number of days past the last game with the Cowboys. Giants came up small again, Little Giants. It might be your favorite film, but it's not the way I want to see the team play. First off, are you anything special you're drinking here tonight and while you're on vacation, it looks
No,
like?
I'm not on vacation, but isn't this relaxing? Wouldn't this be great? Just sort of, put the football out of your mind, pretend you're on a beach. I wish I had a margarita to go with this. I'm still trying to finish this O'Connor El Guapo stuff. It's not very good, but it's funny. So I'm still
Nice.
I'm still working through the stuff I don't like. I like the stuff I was drinking, the German beer, and I like their stuff. This is all right. It's anyways. What are you?
So I've got Bevy Ben Brewing Company's Italian Pilsner, excuse me, dry hopped pills. It's 12 ounces of 5.3 by volume. It's not bad. It's fine. I got it from there's a beer cave, beer garden, whatever, in Goose Creek, South Carolina, not far from my house. And they've got a lot of really interesting eclectic blends and stuff. So I thought, yeah, I'll give it a shot. So basically, I just gave kind of a list to my wife when she was out and just see if the guy has any of these. And just somebody was in there and just was like, oh, you want this. So she
Yeah.
came home with $150 worth of beer. So
Whoa,
here we go.
whoa, wait,
So
whoa.
here we go. Yeah,
Okay.
I kind of should
And
have
I
put a
just have
limit.
my cheap SL Guapo.
I should have put I should
Okay.
have put a limit on the dollar amount. She was like, I don't know how much you wanted. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Our episodes
At some
are
point, I'll break out the boxed wine too when we have a more sophisticated night. So, all
nice.
right.
Or if things keep going the way they're going, we'll have some Boone's Farm and we'll really shake
Yeah.
it up. I thought about getting some Schlitz. I thought it'd be more appropriate for where we're at. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway. So all right. So Giants Cowboys. I know we're not going to go through every little bit of it, but let's talk about it. Kind of broad stroking it as a term you used. Once again, in a game in which they had their home, you have a chance, maybe not necessarily make a big statement, but certainly say that the tide has changed. We've turned a corner. We were anything but that. We showed that once again, this team just can't get it done.
Well, it's so disappointing is that the division's there for the taking. I mean, the
Oh.
Commanders are in first place. And we can talk about that a little bit, but look what a quarterback does, because that roster the Commanders have is not better than the other teams in the division,
Agreed.
including the Eagles, including the Cowboys, including the Giants. But they've got the best quarterback in the division right now, and so look what a quarterback can do. So I hate to say it, because I'm one of those guys, when I watch a Giants game, I cannot root against them, but it would have been better for the Giants to have lost games last year and gotten Jaden Daniels. A lot of people don't want to hear that, but I love Malik Neighbors, but if Jaden Daniels is on this team, we have a whole different feel right now. I mean, it's unbelievable. They're in first place. The Commanders are, and it's not something crazy. They're beating the crap out of teams now.
I
You
can't go with the losing part only because again, so many things have to happen in order for that to still play out. You don't know
no,
when
no, no.
but no, I see. I totally disagree. You don't know at the time when you're playing that you need to lose these particular games
I'm
to
not
get.
saying that. I'm not saying they should have tanked.
But that's the only way you can lose.
No, what I'm saying is it's unfortunate that we didn't just incidentally lose another game or two. Like
Ah,
again, so
ah,
uh, where there were games we should have lost and we should have won. And I'm saying if we had lost some of those games, DeVito winning those games right now looks like a hollow victory at this point to me. It's just, unless he comes on to be something, which I doubt he will be. It's just, I'm not saying tank intention. I'm just saying if things had gone.
yeah, I got you.
We played the Commanders in one game, and in overtime, Isaiah Simmons intercepts a pass, runs it back for a touchdown, and that's the game. What if he doesn't intercept that pass and the Commanders go on and score? I don't know if that would have moved us ahead in that spot. I'm just saying
Sure. No,
I'm just saying,
it's
if Jaden Daniels is on this team, there's a whole different vibe right now in New York. There's just a whole different vibe. If he's doing what he's doing with the Commanders with us, we're on cloud nine, and it wouldn't even matter if we were going to make the playoffs. We would just be like, yay, we've got a quarterback. So it's depressing because now the Commanders are in front of us. It's just so sad. I mean, we're in last place in the division, and the Commanders are in first place.
Yeah, I will say though, the dilemma would be regardless, and I'm going to get to another piece of it in a little bit, but the dilemma would be we're still stuck with Jones, even if we lost out, unless the Giants were going to be like, we're willing to just eat that cap hit, but he was injured, so you can't. I mean, we're not only would we not be able to save any money, we're screwed. Like,
Yeah,
it's all
they
guaranteed.
probably would have done the Tom Coughlin thing where like Warner would have started the first 9 games, and they would have went when they went to Eli, and it would have been stupid because they should just play.
Right. So
we would have been stuck with as a bridge quarterback.
I have a feeling ultimately, quite frankly, it's a thing that I can't believe I'm gonna say this. If she ever watches any of these episodes, I'm gonna be in big trouble. It's a thing that I try to tell my wife over and over again. Anything that you do differently in the past changes every single step after the fact.
Right.
So
no,
you can't,
no doubt.
yeah. So you can't say it would all fall the same. So what I almost feel like is I don't want to give credence to some people on BBI, bigblueinteractive.com, by the way, who tend to think that the Giants management and ownership is so entrenched in Daniel Jones that they had to see it fail horribly to move off from it. I also don't think that there's not some semblance of truth to the fact that with him healthy while they built the other stuff, if he proves that he's not the guy, then they're pretty much free to go. We made a mistake. We're going to move forward. Who knows? I'm kind of tired of part of it. And I don't know if now's the time to jump into where I was going to go with it, or if we want to talk a little bit more about the game or get back to it.
Yeah, let me just bring this up with the game, and
yeah,
please. You said you had something that you want to rant about. I have no idea what you're going to rant. All right, so
you do not.
Why did we lose this game? So I'm looking at the game book, and the Giants had 3 first half possessions. I'm not counting the kneel down at the end. They scored on all 3 of their drives, which were gained more than 50 yards each. And then their first drive in the second half, they scored. So they scored on their first 4 drives. The problem, stating the obvious, is they were field goals. They weren't touchdowns. This team can't score. And that's why I kind of laughed. I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing with you when you said they were going to score 30 points in this game. I'm like, I don't. I mean,
I did say a defensive touchdown would be in there.
Until proven otherwise, yes, you did. Until proven otherwise, I don't think this quarterback, and you can maybe throw the coaching staff in this, but I don't think this quarterback can score 30 points in a game. And my wife's walking by, and she's probably mumbling under her breath, Daniel Jones sucks. He says that all the time. Okay, I know it sounds like we're picking on him, but it's a problem when the other team jumps off sides, you have a free play. Your wide receiver has like 3 yards of separation downfield, and you so badly underthrow the ball that it doesn't even have a chance. I mean, so
I should have done my rant first.
So the points come out with Saya said this, but people have said this for years. Points come out of the passing game. What did Dallas do? Dallas got the 55-yarder from CD Lamb. Ty Banks got beat. By the way, Tyler Newman is getting a pass by too many people on that. The safety cannot allow him. He's the last.
Yeah, it was horrible.
He cannot. And Tyler Newman's been playing well, but he's got to prevent that, and he didn't do that. So Ty Banks, yes, he got burnt, but that's Tyler Newman's to prevent him from getting into the end zone. But that play. So Dallas gets the big play with the touchdown, and we don't. So it's a very, and I'm going to let you do your rant, but it was a very frustrating game because you could go up and down the roster in the game and say, well, they didn't really play that poorly. And you could say, Daniel wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. But you could keep doing that. The only thing that was really stood out to me are 2 things. And boy, was I wrong. Remember My prediction was the Giants were going to lose, but my two guys that were going to be, if they won, that were going to be MVPs were going to be Devin Singletary, which the Giants get 20-something yards rushing. That's crazy. I don't know how that happened. They against the league's worst rush defense. And again, that wasn't Singletary. I don't know the offensive line, which played great pass blocking. I don't know what happened with that, but they made the interior tackles on Dallas look fantastic after they've been getting abused in the first 3 games. And the other guy was Brian Burns, and Brian Burns was a no-show. So don't go with my MVPs. But anyways, long story short, you don't score, you don't win. They didn't score. They scored field goals, but they didn't score touchdowns. You don't score touchdowns, you don't win. And that was the difference in the ball game because they had 5 scoring drives. 5. If you told me the Giants had 5 scoring drives, I would have thought, hey, maybe we got 2 touchdowns and we're going to win. 5? I mean, it's ridiculous. Rant time.
So before I start, I will say, here's your warning before I get into it. It's going to get salty. I don't know if you're familiar or any of you out there familiar with, there's an author named Jason Brant. Jason Brant has a YouTube channel called So Bad It's Good, where he does bad movies and they watch the bad movies and they talk about why they're so bad that it's good.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah. We watch him. He's good.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones is to quarterbacking what Steven Seagal is to movie making. In that, I say, Steven Seagal movies, when it starts, right? There's going to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. It could be very incoherent, but there's a beginning, middle, and end. And at some point in time during you watching a Steven Seagal movie, you're like, hey, that was kind of cool. Oh, that's interesting. But there are other times where you're like, what the hell was that? And then there's just stuff where like, my God, that's so bad. Like, did you even try? Or you're like, how pathetic is this? And I started to think about this as I was watching the game. I love Jason Brand. And I love when they do their Sifu Seagal ones. It's hysterical. And one of the things that they did a voiceover for when they do a Seagal one is there's a clip from one of his movies where a guy who basically in almost every Seagal movie, someone has to, practically get down on their knees and praise Seagal's character for whatever amazing thing he is. And the line says something to the effect of, a man walks with an air of confidence not seen in today's age. Daniel Jones walks around with the confidence of Charlie Brown about to kick the football from Lucy. Daniel Jones, when he comes on the field, you're like, oh my God, just don't do something embarrassing. His biggest highlight is making an end-around run against Philadelphia, where a guy 6'5", 235 pounds is like, wow, he is moving for a dude who looks like he's a little lighter in the skin, and you're like, wow, he's running fast. He's a big dude.
Right.
The only thing left between him and the end zone are these white lines on the field to tell you where you are, and he trips and falls. A highlight that has been shown over and over and over again. And it's been known as the Daniel fucking Jones. Oh my God. So when you watch this game and you brought it up, which is partly why I wish I had gone first. When you brought it up, you draw somebody offsides. It is now free play time. You can do whatever. It's okay if it gets intercepted. It's okay if he's triple covered. It's okay. But Jesus Christ, will you throw it to where the receiver is?
Yeah.
The only possibility was an interception. That was never going to make it. Right. And yes, can Darius Slayton catch some of the other passes? The one where he has to throw, where he goes down low, could he catch it? Sure. But have you seen the movie Necessary Roughness? When they have the wide receiver that they call Featherstone on the outside because he's super fast. What can Featherstone do? They call him Hands of Stone. He can't freaking catch. Do they ask him to make diving catches? No. So you're asking Darius Slayton, one of the least reliable hands receivers we have on the team, to somehow be streaking down the field, to go down low for a pass that's passing the defender's hip, and he's supposed to slide and catch it, and you blame it on him for not catching it. Okay, that is probably true. He could have made that catch. But if the quarterback just fucking threw the ball about 2 yards further down the field from a guy his size, that's a touchdown.
Right.
But that's not even the worst one. Malik Neighbors burns his guy on the second play of the game. The defender bites so hard that Neighbors is out writing a freaking novel about his career that hasn't even finished yet. And Jones lobs him a pass. Go back and look at the highlight. Why the hell is it coming in so high? Why does Neighbors have to turn, wait for it, catch it, turn back around, and then head down the field, gaining about 7 to 8 more yards? If you freaking hit him in stride, that's at least 20, if not maybe a touchdown. It lets Neighbors use all of his ability. Instead, he catches it and he just goes down the field a little bit further and goes out of bounds. That's on the quarterback. I don't care about anything else. If you think I'm wrong, go watch freaking Brock Purdy against the Patriots this past weekend. Brock Purdy is not anywhere near the size of Daniel Jones. Brock Purdy doesn't have a big arm. Look at the throw he makes deep down the field to Ayuk, a throw he makes deep down the field to Samuels. Want to see a even better quarterback? How about a guy who's bounced to 4 different freaking teams and Sam Darnold, who hits guys in the freaking fly 50 yards down the field? Jones can't fucking do it. He absolutely can't do it. Is he the reason we lost? No. But he is the reason we didn't win. And that is a huge difference that people don't seem to understand.
Yeah.
You can't point to and say, because of him, we completely lost. No, but his inability to be an actual decent quarterback is the reason we can't win. It's the reason you need 15 plays to kick a field goal.
Right.
Every time you need more plays, you ask for false starts. You ask for holding penalties. You ask for potential fumbles. You ask for something bad to happen. And we can't, as you mentioned before, we literally have to be perfect to score.
Right. Well, he had good pass protection. The offensive line was great.
Pass protection that goes back to the glory days of Eli, that we kept a defensive front known for getting after the quarterback. I don't care what they've done so far this year. Against us, they have basically sat in the backfield waiting for the ball to be snapped. I mean, we might as well just handed it to
and if you told me we were going to have that kind of pass protection in the game again,
we're winning. We're winning the games.
So he had, and I don't, the thing with Slayton, you have to wonder, should he have been playing with his thumb? I don't know. But the thing is,
who cares if you don't throw it to him? His thumb is immaterial.
The best thing you said was he didn't make enough plays to win the game. And that's where we're at. So Phil Simms years ago said the difference between an 8-8 season and a 12-4 season is winning those tight games and making the plays in those tight games that are the difference. And Daniel's not making those plays. He's just not, whether it's mental, physical, whatever I don't know what the reason is. I don't care at this point. He's just not making the plays, because what it comes down to is the Giants would have won this game if there was a special play or two in here, and the quarterback has got to make those plays. Can other people help him out? Sure. But he had the pass protection. He's got Malik Neighbors. He's got Wan'Dale Robinson. He's got better tools than he's ever had. Dallas isn't that good. We know Dallas isn't that good. I spent Saturday with my neighbor who's a Cowboys fan, and he wasn't even really bragging about the game like he normally does, because he knows that. He said to me, Dallas isn't going to do anything this year. He said, so he know. I mean, he wasn't even trash talking with me because he knows Dallas isn't good. So,
and it's not even just the plays he didn't make, because you and I talked about this during the summer. It is the plays sometimes that are made, but what they could have been. Now, there is one play that didn't actually happen, and a lot of people will blame Wan'Dale Robinson, and so be it. I agree, he probably should have. But if you go back and look at the play that was almost called a fumble, but luckily called an incomplete pass, Robinson's on the right. He's coming across the field. Jones is hitting him as he's getting to the side. But how does he hit him? Robinson's coming around. He has to turn back around to the inside instead of leading him, which is where he should be leading him. Robinson literally had to turn back around. So when he does, he turns, he catches, and he should have caught the ball. But think about the amount of athletic ability it takes if you're sprinting in one direction and you're expecting the ball to lead you, and it suddenly is coming in behind you. You turn and catch, you pirouette to go. Robinson just didn't hold the ball. Even if he did, though, you've now taken at least 5 yards of gain out of the play. At least.
Yeah.
You've taken his momentum, which is heading to the sideline, now back to the interior of the field and he's trying to turn and get back out to where he was supposed to go. Now, there's a couple other passes that were very similar. You're going to get Malik Neighbors fucking killed if you keep throwing him passes. Here he is. He's set to the outside. Jones throws it to the inside hip where the defender's coming out, and he gets creamed.
Yeah.
And you saw Neighbors go over here. That is not a good sign. Neighbors has been the good soldier so far. He said the right things, but there's going to come a point where he's going to say things that are going to be like, I'm not thrilled with what's happening here. Your quarterback's going to get him killed. He's literally, at this point, he's got to be on some sort of record pace for targets. He's on pace for potentially, I think it's 1,600 plus yards, the way things are going. And that's from a team that only has 880 yards total passing. Jones is only doing 220 a game. That means
we can't score.
We can't score.
Can't score points.
It's one thing to say the Cowboy game, we had all these drives and we kicked the field goal. What was the big worry that you had going into the game? The kicker. We were worried about the kicker. The one goddamn thing we were worried about, the guy is perfect. We can't, and that's all we got were field goals. We had 3 touchdowns in week 2, and we ended up with 18 points. You almost have to intentionally try not to get 21 to have that happen.
One of the things that's driving me crazy too, and it's becoming a trend now, and I don't know if it's the play design or it's where Daniel's going with the ball, with checkdowns, but how many times do we have to throw on 3rd down short of the sticks and hope the receiver gets to the 1st down marker? And sometimes they have, and sometimes they haven't. But throw beyond the 1st down marker, please. I mean, it's just I'm like a lot of people on the website right now. I'm a little numb to this now. It's just, it seems like it's just, and again, maybe it's a little unfair to the current regime because again, because we keep changing coaching staffs, we keep changing GMs, and we psychologically as a group, we're lumping them all together. But I feel like we've been on this for so long, and it's just like the shirt I'm wearing right now. So it's got the 4 Super Bowls. So remember when in 2011 and Dallas looks like they're going to win the division easily unless we somehow beat them twice in the last 4 weeks, and we go down to Dallas and we're losing, and Eli
rallies them back
on 2 touchdown drives. I mean, on his shoulder, he put the team. I've argued for years that Eli was the MVP of the league in 2011 because they were last place defense. They were last place rushing attack. It was only in the playoffs when both those, but he and Victor Cruz and Hakeem Nicks carried that team in the regular season. And Daniel, Eli won that game and JPP saved it with the blocked field goal.
Yep.
And then that home game to win the division was a thing of beauty. And I miss that. I mean, that's to me, I mean, it's been so long since we've taken care of business with Dallas, and we had a chance to get the 2. If we were 2-2 right now, 1 game behind the Commanders, and Dallas was 1-3. We and the Eagles were 2-2. We'd have a much different outlook on this. And of course, if we'd beaten the Commanders the week before,
we'd be 3-1. We'd be 3-1.
And we could have won both those games. And we're not scoring enough. We're not scoring enough points.
And that's sorry.
My
bad.
Point to the defense. You can point. I had a problem with the pass rush in this game. I thought they were going to give Dallas more, but the long story short, Dallas only scored 20 points.
So let's stop it there for a sec. Let's take a break. And then we will we'll bring Cy on, and we'll get to that. So I'm gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back with Inside BBI with John and Eric, and got our rant out of the way. And joining us now is as everybody knows, Cy from Big Blue Interactive, Dave Syvertsen of Ourlads Scouting. And Dave, first off, you were at the Giants game this past week. I just want to get, I know you do the game reviews. For those who don't know, bigblueinteractive.com. Make sure you look at the game reviews after Cy does an awesome job. I don't want to go through the whole game. Let's just really talk about Daniel Jones. And one of the things I made a statement, and I'm standing by it. Even if you disagree with me, I'm standing by it. Daniel Jones is not the reason we lost, but he is the reason we didn't win.
That's a good way of putting it. And I would agree with it. Big time quarterbacks that are being paid big time money in big time games, big time moments, they make at least some of those throws downfield. That's the way it is. And that's why I think it's a good reason to watch football beyond your favorite team. Go watch some of these best quarterbacks in the NFL. That's what they do. It almost seems unfair to expect him to make a 30, 40, 50 yard pass down the field at a high success rate. But we're not even asking that. We're asking for a 50% success rate. And had he done that, they win that game.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the things I was even mentioning is like, and it's funny because I do watch other games. I love football. So I did see a bunch of, amazingly enough, I watched the 49ers and Patriots game a bit. And here you have Brock Purdy, who is physically more, I don't want to say limited, but certainly doesn't have the stature of a Jones, the size, even arm strength. His downfield passing is spot on most of the time.
Yep.
And then you see Sam Darnold, the guy who's bounced from like 4 teams, and he's making these unbelievably deep throws. And I'm not saying, like you said, it's not every throw, but it's those magical moments when the opportunity's there, when a neighbor's. And so I want to ask you this. One of the biggest problems people talk about is the Slayton throw, which I agree. There's 2 Slayton throws that could have been a lot better.
Yep.
The one that bothered me the most was Neighbors. He's wide open on that second play. Jones is watching him the entire time. And that rainbow pass took Neighbors to the sidelines backwards, now having to turn back around.
It'd be one thing if he could lean on the fact that it was windy or really bad weather, and it was sprinkling, but not during the game. And honestly, it was actually a very muggy night. It was a sweaty night. You could see some of the players were cramping up on the field. There was no weather excuse. And in that stadium, you never know, but that's really more of a late in season type thing. So it just, and Trayvon Diggs, he's a corner that everyone loves because of the turnovers, but the guy gets burned deep every year. That's one of the weaknesses to his game. And Neighbors had him multiple times. There was even a situation where he didn't get the ball. And I don't think anyone brought it up on the broadcast. His Neighbors was not happy. It was towards the end of the game in the fourth quarter. It was a 3rd or 4th down, and Neighbors had him beat deep by at least 5 yards, maybe more, because Diggs was playing him up. They thought it was going to be a short route. And it's just, you kind of have to add it to the list of this 6 to 7 year evaluation of Daniel Jones. And it's hard to swallow it sometimes.
Yeah. And meanwhile, his buddy is in Washington lighting it up, and he's, give me a quarterback like that again. So
I know.
So
I mean,
the Giants scored on their first 4 possessions, if you count the first possession in the second half, and you don't count the kneel down at the end of the first, they score, but they're just not getting touchdowns. And this is an ongoing thing with Daniel. And he can't play in the pass protection now. He just can't get the team in the end zone. It just,
did I read correctly? I'm jealous I didn't find this out myself. I think I read somewhere where it's been like 630 days since he's thrown a touchdown at MetLife Stadium or something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It goes back to the, was it the Colts game? I think it's the Colts game at the end of 22.
Wow, that's hard. That's hard.
But of course, the injury thing's in there. But anyway.
It's just that's playing a game with numbers.
But maybe not. No.
Yeah.
It's just so frustrating, and that's why we wanted to have you on, because I think that even the team knows that they've got to do something at this position, and there's a lot of craziness going on in the college ranks right now. So,
well, on Hard Knocks, Joe Shane was seen and quoted. It's all over. You can easily find it. He was joking with Ryan Poles, GM of the Bears, saying it's like, oh, it must be great to not have to look for a quarterback. They're definitely looking, and they looked last year. It's gonna be a different group this year. I know that's what we're gonna talk about, but the Giants, the writing is on the wall, even for Mara, who loves him. It said that they have not done enough to provide for him support wise. There is now enough support to be playing better football than what he's doing right now.
Yeah.
Before we get just to the quarterbacks, though, there is something, and I've noticed it a couple times. So I wanted to ask your opinion, since you break down, you're watching the game and you've watched the film multiple times before you do your write up.
Yep.
I've noticed that they do this weird thing where, and they did it early in the, I want to say it's early in the Cowboy game. Neighbors was off the field at the time. They were calling a play that is essentially, I think it's almost an RPO, but it gives the hint that we are either running or we're potentially doing. And they have Wandell on the field. They bring Wandell in motion. He ends up being a blocker, like on the play.
I know exactly what play you're talking about.
Yeah, that play was the second they snapped the ball. I'm like, if they run this, it is doomed to fail right away.
Yeah.
I don't understand some of the concepts lately with him. And then I also don't understand the uses of Johnson, who I thought was late out of his stance multiple times when I rewatched some of the things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to go down the coaching train yet, but I do think that it's brewing now that we're in year 3. This regime picked Daniel Jones after doing that whole weird of denying his 5th-year option, not doing the franchise tag, locking him up. That to me is you're endorsing this guy and you think it can work. So if he's not performing at a high level, we can sit here and blame Daniel Jones. But I do think at some point, if this does not improve, some of that conversation is going to have to go towards his coaching staff, because the goal of this organization right now, which has been a revolving door of head coaches, right? I mean, I'm 38 years old. So basically Jim Fossil. Yeah, I know. I mean, I really started getting into this in the Jim Fossil, Tom Coughlin era. And it was 2 coaches spread about. I mean, Eric probably has the answer on the top of his head, but it was probably a 20-year run. Dan Reeves maybe is when I really started paying attention.
Yeah.
Like a 20-year run of 3 coaches.
Yeah.
And now it seems like it's a 2 to 3 year trial run. And I bring that up because look what Matt LaFleur is doing with Malik Willis. Look what Kevin O'Connell is doing with Sam Darnold. Look, and last year, Nick Mullins, by the way, I'm not on the Darnold train yet because of what Nick Mullins did. I'm going to put some information out there on Twitter soon. Nick Mullins was balling last year, similar to what Darnold's doing right now. And without that first round pedigree, look what Shanahan has done in San Francisco with Jimmy Garoppolo and a revolving door of quarterbacks and a 7th round pick, Brock Purdy. The Giants are almost confirming to me that they don't have that mastermind offensive play caller that I really do feel like is necessary for a quarterback to truly develop.
That's scary.
Well, and even if they do, they've sabotaged themselves on the personnel front when they tied themselves to this quarterback situation. So it's a bad situation because in hindsight, 2022 was almost a bad thing for them because it locked them into this quarterback. But again, they did it to themselves. They could have said, they could have stepped back and said, we had to dumb down the offense at the end of 2022. We got to the playoffs, but he's not our guy. But they signed him to that contract. They tied, for 2 years at least. And that's an eternity now in the NFL, 2 years. You can't just throw 2 years away. And that's kind of what they are doing right now. And they may be gone because they just tied themselves to the wrong guy. So it's one or the other. It's what you said, or both. The coaching might be an issue, but if it's not the coaching, the personnel thing killed them.
Yeah, and honestly, Eric, I do believe in Daboll still. I want to go on record with that. I do believe in him, but the discussion is not going to go away if it doesn't get better. And one thing I would like to see, and I was really hoping it would have happened this past draft, is to watch this coaching staff develop a rookie from the start. And, you just don't know. We're about to get into it. We don't know what's going to happen in the draft next year. You don't know where the Giants are going to be picking. They might roll themselves into another 6 or 7 wins. Like, you don't know what the top of this quarterback group is going to look like. Not everyone was all in on J.J. McCarthy, but I thought that was going to be a really good opportunity for this team to sit a quarterback for a year, which I still very much believe in, similar to what the Patriots are doing with Drake May. And what J.J. McCarthy is being forced into because of that meniscus injury is to let him sit for a year, let Jones play. Your best case scenario is he plays himself into a trade next year because there's always teams looking for a veteran quarterback. That would have been the scenario I would have loved to sign for, but also because I want to see Kafka, Daboll, and Shane kind of develop a system around him. I don't want to get doomsday. I'm going to try to keep looking at the ocean behind you, Eric, right now. When's the last time the Giants had an all-pro defensive tackle, an all-pro left tackle, a wide receiver that looks like a superstar, offensive line that is protecting? I mean, the pieces are there, and that is what I think is going to add to this level of frustration that it's just they can't get over that hump.
Well, and one thing that before you came on that I talked about is look at Washington. Their roster, you can't argue their roster is better than the Eagles, better than the Cowboys, better than the Giants, but they get a quarterback and they're in first place. So
Houston last year, same thing. CJ Stroud.
I hate to say it because it sounds overly simple, in a way it is. But if you get that guy, if you
Yep.
have the guy,
Yep.
instantly your prospects change instantly.
Yep.
So
And they're just hard to defend. I don't know if the Commanders are this good, but they don't know how to defend Jaden Daniels. And that is one of the advantages of relying on a rookie is like you have 6 years of tape on Jones and you know what he's going to struggle with. It's almost easy to defend at this point
right.
where Jaden, the league just doesn't know what to do yet. You know, I don't know if they're going to hold on to this level. I mean, what he's doing right now is historic.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if he's going to stay at that level. More power to him if he does. But there's just so many variables and so many reasons why it is a good idea to restart the quarterback clock, especially next year.
It's an interesting narrative too when you think about it, and it would be a false positive for us if the Giants had just had a kicker in week 2. We probably beat Washington, and now you're having a different conversation.
Yeah.
If they just make one of those deep passes, the whole piece of that game probably changes. We probably beat Dallas. This team could be 3-1, which would be a very inflated 3-1 because the quarterback is still the negative of the situation, but the league is watered down. So that's how bad it is. We're in a watered down league. This NFC East is beginning to remind me of 2020, where I think it was a 7-10 team won the division. We ended up losing the division. I think we were 6-11 because we were pissed that the Eagles laid down in the game against Washington at the end of the year. So this whole division was ripe for the taking, and we have the one negative at the biggest spot that just cannot take advantage of it. So with that in mind, let's kind of switch gears. Let's go to the college game. The guy that you mentioned, I'm going to dial it back. And those who haven't seen, and a lot of you did, go back to when we reviewed the Houston Giants preseason game. And Cy was on with us. We started talking briefly about quarterbacks. And you mentioned the guy you felt could possibly be the number 1 guy in Milroe of Alabama. And he put on a show.
And a lot of people were like, what at the time? So, Cy.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I said on my Twitter, I'd rather be wrong about my opinion than right about someone else's, you know, and you know, we did have Jaden Daniels as QB1 last year. We had him as QB1 at this time last year. This is the first time. So I just sent them in today. You guys are getting the first look at it because I don't think it's going to be on the website or the YouTube channel for a few days, but Milroe, before I get into this quarterback class, I will say there's 5 or 6 guys right now. I don't see any of them on the level as the top 3 from last year at this moment in time. 70% of the games have yet to been played. The games are what matter the most to me. It's not the workouts. It's not the interviews. It's not the highlight tapes. So most of the process is still to come our way. But of all the top guys, there's really interesting traits in all of them, but I don't see any of them being a sure thing top 10 pick. But because of the draft and the way the league is right now, they're going to be first round picks. At least 3 of these guys will be. Example, at this time last year, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, I had day 2 outlooks on at this point. McCarthy moved himself up by the time I actually watched all of his film, which was in January after he declared for the draft, because I did think he could go back. But Bo Nix and Michael Penix were day 2 grades, and I still think they're day 2 quarterbacks. But the value of the league wants the young quarterback. Economics with these contracts is out of control. That is the tier I'm putting these guys in right now. Is I think they're in that, hey, on the fringe first, second round grade, but because they play quarterback, they could definitely find themselves at the top of the first round. And Jalen Milroe is, to me, he's still the guy that has the superstar potential because of the combination of arm talent, athletic ability, that does truly remind me of Lamar Jackson. And I don't know. I mean, some people, you might not love that. Even Lamar is a 2-time MVP winner. He hasn't done it in the playoffs. You do have to rely on your arm more so in the playoffs, and you are playing with fire if your top 3 traits are athleticism based at a quarterback. I still feel you got to have that pocket ability. But one thing I like about Milroe, and this is what we liked about Jaden Daniels last year, he has a lot of success throwing the ball downfield. It doesn't always look the way you want it to look, and he still is really raw. I mean, coming into this year, I mean, last season he threw the ball 285 times. So out of the 6 first rounders in last year's draft, the next fewest was Jaden Daniels at 332. Michael Penix threw the ball 556 times last year. So Milroe, he just didn't have to throw it. And you might have this view of him that he looks like a college quarterback. And I wouldn't argue it against it. But the game is changing, and the guy is a rocked up 225 pounds. And I'll shut up after this. His intangibles, he is an easy kid to love. He's a leader. Teammates love him. And even though Lamar Jackson's leadership traits are different than, Peyton Manning, Donovan McNabb, Eli Manning, the teammates and coaches love the guy. And that's really important, in my opinion, as Malik Neighbors. Like, you want Malik Neighbors to really kind of jive with that quarterback. And I see that in Milroe.
Well, I just want to throw this in because I know John's got a question. I saw something on Twitter yesterday of Malik Neighbors and Milroe hugging after a game last year. And it looked like they like each other. So immediately my head goes, well, I know who he might be calling for. So
there's something there. And, I'm not ready to put him on that really high tier yet, but there's no denying that would probably be the most exciting days of Giants football, especially with what we've been dealing with lately. If that ended up being the pair that we were watching on Sundays.
Well, and you used a comparison with Jackson, and I agree with you from the athletic side, but he's physically, he's more of a combination of Hurts and Jackson. If Jackson were a little bit bigger, you would worry less about his long term because he's been taking some shots and he's not a big dude.
Yeah.
Milroe's a big dude. I watched that game.
Yeah.
Some of his passes are off here or there, but I'll tell you this. His passes were on in spots where they should be way more than Jones's were the other day. Yep. Jones, one of the biggest ones that I had, and I want to get back to the college game, is the crossing pattern, the pass to Robinson where he almost could have been called a fumble, but they called it incomplete. Yep. He's sprinting to the sideline, right to left, at least on the screen, right to left. He had to spin and turn, pirouette back to the inside. It's a shitty pass. Yep, if he leads them, that we talked about it. You lead them, you go. I saw Milroe make some passes which were where the receiver needed to catch it and where the defender couldn't get it. And I thought that, I'm like, wow, for a guy who's known for his athletic ability, his passing ability was far better than I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, his average depth of target, meaning how far he throws the ball downfield on average, including screen passes and the Hail Marys down the field, it's higher than everyone. The guy throws the ball downfield. He's very confident. He's got all the arm strength. He throws a clean ball. You don't see a lot of wiggle when you're watching the tape from the end zone angle. And I do think that there's a little bit of an issue that I'm noticing. This is why I'm not putting him up in that tier yet, is that it doesn't seem like he goes through a lot of reads quickly and knows exactly where to go. So it's almost like, hey, my first read's not there, I'm taking off, or I'm going to scramble and then try to make something happen on my own. That's not a bad trait. A lot of these quarterbacks do that. Caleb Williams made a living off of that, but that arm talent, it's not as smooth yet. It seems very rigid, but he's still pretty early in the progression. And I still think he's earlier on the progression curve as a passer than every other quarterback we're going to talk about. And that, to me, you have to project talent to the next level. And to me, Milroe needs to be a 7 out of 10 passer to be a very good quarterback in the NFL. We don't need a 10 out of 10.
Right. What do you make out of Beck? Because that was an up and down game for him. So
it was
a disaster in the first half. But you have to give him credit for bringing them back.
That's a part of playing quarterback.
So what do we have? What do you think? What do we have there?
In August, if you asked me, who do you think is the guy that you would put money on to be the first quarterback taken, it was Beck, just because he's got the NFL frame. He's 6'4", 220. His footwork is really clean. The ability to process information, that's a catchy word now, but it's a thing that the coaches talk about it a lot. And I'm only bringing that up because his coaching staff, which has worked with a lot of NFL quarterbacks, they said he's the best or one of the best quarterbacks at taking information pre-snap, immediately post-snap, and knowing where to go. And I actually see that on tape, that he gets the ball out faster than everybody, almost to a fault. Like, I almost wish I could see him make a few more big throws, like really tight window, hard throws, but he knows where to go. And that's something that Sean Payton, that's the reason Bo Nix got drafted by Denver. Like that's a thing that some teams really need. I mean, Shanahan, Purdy, that marriage is partially works because he just knows where to go. There's an intelligence level. So, I mean, physically he's got it, he's got the arm. I just don't see the elite arm talent and big time throws into tight windows that are going to translate to the next level. So he's actually bumped his way down a little bit, but I did like the fact that the processing is there. and he did bounce back after a tough first half against Alabama. That means something.
So the guy that I mentioned when you were last on that I was kind of on board with,
Yep.
Cam Ward,
Yeah.
he has played very well. Now he is unorthodox to a degree.
Yes.
Just so kind of give me some of your thoughts, both on the positive side and then some things that give you a little, pause, a little caution.
Trivia. Where did he start college?
Was it Washington State?
That was his second school. Incarnate Word is where he started.
Okay. All right. All right.
So, and I bring that up because I like this about him. He has kind of similar to Jared Verse, who was a first round pick there, who's tearing it up right now for the Rams, started off at Albany. And very few people know that because he spent a couple years at Florida State. He accidentally got recruited by them. And then all of a sudden, Florida State is like, dude, we have a first round talent on this team. Like, it was by accident that he ended up here. Cam Ward goes from a quarterback that just impressed at the right time in front of the right people, goes to Washington State, took his game to another level. Now he transfers, in my opinion, up to the ACC when you're talking about who you're going to be playing against. And now he hasn't played those defenses yet, but he is now playing at an even higher level. And this is what I liked about Jaden Daniels. Goes from Arizona State, was good, goes up to the LSU scheme and schedule and level of opponents, and now he gets even better. And that's what you're going to do in the NFL. You're going to level up multiple levels. And you had that experience and confidence in yourself to raise your level of play despite the competition getting better? And Cam Ward has done that as much as anyone. It's him or Shedeur Sanders who have impressed me the most and have moved up from the most from August to now in my quarterback stack.
So we, I saw Eric mention it to me before we started. Jim Nagy, who does the Senior Bowl and stuff, he basically came out and said in his conversations with NFL folks that this group for 2025, and it's early, this group for 2025, they really have maybe, I think he wanted to say, I think it was 10 legit first round grades. I don't really want to delve from the quarterbacks too far, but just in general, your thoughts though on that comment, and are you kind of thinking and seeing a similar thing as well?
So I actually tweeted something out about that comment, and to me, it's just too early to talk like that, because every year, I mean, I can go back to the past 3 drafts and give you 2 or 3 names that at this time last year nobody had as first rounders.
Right.
Like there's just so much, and I know it's almost, I feel like it's a competitive market where everyone wants to be first, right? And we're all guilty of it. I called this. I was right. I was here first. We're all guilty of it, right? But that to me, it's just premature because we have 70% of the games to watch still. But the one thing I will say that feeds into what his notion is, James Pierce, DN from Tennessee, edge defender from Penn State, Abdul Carter. These were guys that we thought, no doubt, top 5, and they're not playing well. They don't look like first-round talents right now. So you kind of take them out of the equation. The offensive line class will not be what it was last year. The top 3 quarterbacks are not what they were last year. But I'm actually looking at some of these other positions, like the top 3 wide receivers, Harrison, Neighbors, and Odunze. We don't know if we have that level of echelon at the top of this wide receiver group. But I think it's a little premature to say it. And if you put a gun to my head right now and said, hey, we're putting these stacks together, offense, defense, how many real first round grades do you have? I'm at 15. So I don't completely buy into that 10 number yet. It just might not be like, hey, we don't have the elite guys that we knew were going to be top 5 at some of those key positions.
It seems at this point almost obvious there's going to be overdrafting at the quarterback position. When you look at the league, there are a lot of teams in desperate need of quarterbacks, which is a bad thing for the Giants. You almost have to be shitty even to get a guy that might go much higher than he should, just because of the need across the league.
It's one of the most interesting conversations that I now try to avoid, trying to lose games so you get the quarterback. Right. I mean, I am a culture guy. I do think winning games can help. I do remember we had the arguments on BBI, I think, Eric, with Chase Young versus Andrew Thomas. Oh, we won that game, so we don't get Chase Young. It's like, but I do see it, like I do want the quarter. But now even Trevor Lawrence is starting to fall apart. I think that's more coaching than him. But, I'm starting to really kind of study these failed quarterback situations, and then these quarterback revivals, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, and then Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence. The system around them needs to be better. the coaching, the offensive line, the weapons. You need to hit at a lot of different parts. And that's why it's such a complicated equation. I don't think it's always, hey, the quarterback wasn't good enough. So to me, I actually think the Giants are in a decent spot here. They're probably going to be picking in the top 15. If I had to put money on it, they're probably picking in the top 10. And we all hope I'm wrong, right?
Sure.
Just looking at that beach once again. But the quarterbacks, if these guys all come out, it's no guarantee. I can make a case right now that any of these 6 guys that I have, and I've seen every snap of the top 10 guys on my quarterback snack this year, every single snap. And you can make a case for these guys if the system is right. And if you can adjust the scheme to them, I really do feel that way. Even a guy that I'm not going to get into the off field stuff yet. I'm going to wait until January, February, but Shedeur Sanders to me is, and I know other people around the league are looking at it, take Dion out of the equation. And I know that can be hard. I mean, he's got it too. He actually looks like the best thrower of the football right now on a lot of different levels. And, that off-field discussion will be one of the more interesting and polarizing conversations of the entire process. But, between Ward, Sanders, Milroe, Beck, Quinn Ewers is a name that I can't quit. I can't quit him yet, but it's, there's a few things. I mean, his durability, he's been hurt pretty much every single year since his senior year of high school. Minus the 1 year he didn't play when he was at Ohio State. And he's got a 200-pound build that's smaller than small for the position. So you can make a case for and against all these guys. And I think the Giants, they are in a good spot because whatever quarterback they do bring in my opinion, the situation around them is pretty strong. It's just, is this the real coaching staff that's going to develop that player? And can they hit a couple more doubles in the draft?
Right. Well, I think you brought up an interesting point that's been percolating in my mind too, is much depends on if this coaching staff survives. But say they do and they realize this is it. Do they want to go with a rookie, or do they look at some of these quarterbacks that are on the way out from other teams and roll the dice and say, we can recycle this guy and do, say, what Sam Darnold's doing? And both are risky. I'm not advocating for one or the other.
Yeah.
But depending on what's going on with the coaching staff, I could see them actually going the other route too. Now, I'd prefer to get a young rookie and go that route, but I don't know where their head's going to be at come the off season.
Yeah, I mean that's probably a conversation that's above my pay grade.
Yeah,
but I mean we're in week 4 of the season. I think it's your job, Eric, and your job, John, to talk about all these possibilities.
Yeah,
right.
Back in 2022 when the Giants were winning games, I remember talking about this. I was like, all right, it's cool that they're winning, but what are they going to do with Jones? It's like, what that you always have to think about the future. That's one of the hard things. I own a business, and I would liken this to being a general manager. Is you can't just think about today. You can't. It's your job to think about 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And I mean, kidding aside, Sam Darnold might be a free agent in a few months.
Right.
Do you want to go down that path and keep yourself in this win now mode with 2 all-pro caliber players and a rising superstar wide receiver? That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
There's no guarantee that any of these quarterbacks are going to come in and turn out to be CJ Stroud or Jaden Daniels. They could easily be Bryce Young, and you're just going to kind of be back into the hamster wheel 2 years later. So there is, are you do you go for the green and 2 on a par 5, or do you like to lay up? Like, your safe call here is going to be get a veteran and try to raise the floor and keep that floor high, but the ceiling won't be where you really want it to be. You go for the quarterback, you can now dream about the ceiling again. And it's interesting if you could really dive into Mara's head, the owners, and say like, hey, what do you really care about here? Is it promote the optimism with a new, fresh, young quarterback? Or is it like, hey, let's try to sneak in the playoffs and try to build this defense and they can carry us to the Super Bowl with clutch, timely quarterback play? It's a tough situation to take on.
Well,
I like where you're going with that. The one problem is the last one that you just said, which is the Mara factor, which is if this thing kind of goes off the rails, because first off, you were on Hard Knocks, which good or bad, that opened the door to behind the scenes stuff, right?
Yep.
If one of the things they said is they kept using the word, we want to see improvement. They didn't give numbers. They said improvement. Well, you have more talent. and you're finding more ways to lose.
Yep.
So I'm not sure that improvement means what it means. I get concerned when my coach is talking about how proud he is of his quarterback throwing it to the right guy. Not necessarily a good pass, but just that you threw it to, I mean, what is this? Like a participation trophy? What the hell?
Well, it's like what Cy brought up at the end of his game review. And if people haven't read it, read Cy's game review.
Right.
But his last paragraph touched on this very point about the participation trophy.
Yeah, so the thought process of what you might do or what you would like to do, which choice you want to go, recycled veteran or rookie, is also going to depend on who's going to be the coach. If this thing falls apart and Daboll looks bad, Shane is either going to be doing the best he can to keep his job, and he's not going to, putting his ass on the line for Daboll, or they're both going. But either way, this team can't lose out, or I think you're pretty much decided it's a new coaching staff, and then everything's up for grabs.
Yeah, I mean, we're here. We are talking about coaches, but I'll tell you what: if this thing does get ugly, and again, it's the leadership's job to think about what happens if things get ugly, and it ends up being a coaching change. I'm telling you this right now: there are 2 coaches in the NFL that will be, in my opinion, very good head coaches. That if they get their hands on a young quarterback, it's going to work out. And it's Bobby Slowick from Houston and Johnson from Detroit. And I mean, to the point where that guy he's turning down jobs and interviews right now because he's just going to wait for the best possible situation. Everyone wants him. And that is probably the first question that needs to be answered. If things, whether they end up 500, 5-11, or 5-12, or, if they win, if they're above 500, these guys are all coming back, but that to me is the first question, is who's going to be driving the train. In my opinion, Joe Shane has done enough to warrant another run with a new head coach. If they decide that Daboll, I don't want them to clean house in the front office. I like what he's doing. I do think he's done a pretty good job with the draft. Now, Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau, that could put a black eye on that statement in 12 weeks from now. But there has been enough. In my opinion, the Giants have more talent on this team than they've had over the past few years. And they've done a pretty good job in free agency fixing this offensive line after whiffing in the draft. So the coach is going to determine essentially everything about the rest of the roster.
Well, the thing about what was interesting about Hard Knocks is this: they knew where their problems were, which have become their problems.
Yeah.
And a lot of the players they were talking about that even got drafted by other teams have ended up playing well.
Yep.
It seems like the team that they have in place right now can at least evaluate talent.
Right.
Yeah. What you just talked about, that original draft, with the Evan Neal draft. I mean, but other than that, I mean, it looks like they're in the right direction.
But the thing with that draft is they didn't reach. Thibodeau and Neal were slated to be very high picks. Yep. I mean, it's not like they went off the reservation and they pulled Luke Pettigrew out of nowhere. They literally went with the guys that we kind of all thought they might go with. Neal fit the Giant. He's a big dude. He's very physical, supposed to be a really good. And then Thibodeau had there was times if you went a year before, this guy was way up in the rankings and still thought. So it's not like you reached and failed. They just kind of haven't developed.
That's a good point. Those guys were consensus first rounders. I think I had Thibodeau like at the 15th overall. Like I wouldn't call him getting picked at 5 a reach. I think I recall wanting Garrett Wilson at that point, but I was all about Evan Neal, and I don't know anyone that wasn't. Yeah. Not one. I don't listen to everyone in the media, but there's a few guys I do like to cross check on. There wasn't one person that didn't like Evan Neal. I think that's more of an Evan Neal problem. If I went back and watched his college tape this past summer, he was a different player there. He really was. I think confidence got the best of him, and it's just not there. Maybe we'll see a look at right guard at some point, because that's a weak point of this offensive line.
Before we finish, because first off, you got your business, you got the scouting thing, you got family.
We're good, man. We're good.
Let everybody know where they can find you on Twitter. Find you obviously with the game reviews and Ourlads Scouting. So let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, YouTube, Ourlads Scouting. We have a YouTube channel on there every week. Basically, what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to balance a lot of different things. But the one thing I'm doing on that channel every week is the NFL All Rookie Team. I just know that the draft has so many fans, and it's hard to keep track of what the league is doing. So that's basically my task from Tuesday morning through Wednesday afternoon is going through just every stat I can from the rookies and watching the film on guys that I think played well on paper, but you have to confirm that through film. And we are putting out all of our position stacks, which we call them stacks. They're really ranks. And we put out a top 5 write-up of every position. I'm doing quarterback, running back, wide receiver. That's coming out this week. And I will be making a video for all those. So that'll be found on the YouTube channel as well. Ourlads_Cy on Twitter. Doing something there every day, just trying to put some information out there that's a little unique, whether it's about the Giants or about the NFL draft prospects. Now that we're a month into the season, that stuff can really start to pick up, especially with the teams that have already given up on the season.
Yeah, right. So I have 2 quarterback questions for you.
Let's do it.
That we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Now, the first one will be kind of known. You'll get where I'm going with the second one.
Okay.
So Nussmeier, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yep.
Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU. I know BW is going to want to hear about this. So your thoughts on his play and kind of, where you see him maybe at this moment, not necessarily because, like you said, 70% of the game still to go, but where you see him so far, as far as one of the talents coming out.
So I'll give you guys, that inside look. This is exclusive material here.
Breaking news.
This quarterback stack, I'm 20 deep on these guys. I really spent a lot of time on the top 10, the bottom 10. It was just a little bit, just because of the sake of time. Nussmeier is number 7. So I do think the top 6 guys are kind of like in that, these guys might be first round picks. Nussmeier is below that. So you're probably looking at like a 3rd or 4th round grade, a lot of football to be played. What I love about him, it was that first week against USC. I was texting with Dane Brugler from The Athletic about this. His ball placement was just, his accuracy was special. I mean, it was on the money, no matter deep, short, intermediate crossers. And that is what I continue to see in his game. I do think the talent is just not as high as some of these other guys in the top 6. He's not a very big guy. He's not a very fast guy, and he doesn't have a huge arm. But the son of a coach, you always want to kind of keep that in the back of your mind, that he knows the game very well. And you can see that. And I love watching the quarterback after the one that was an elite player. Jaden Daniels is elite. This guy might have been elite for the past 2 years. You just don't know because he hasn't played. He played a great game in the bowl game last year. And so he got off to a hot start. He has come back down to earth a little bit. He had a rough week 2 or week 3 that just brought up a little bit more poor decision-making, but also the inability to create on his own. Him and Carson Beck are they're actually similar graded to me right now. Because Beck is number 4 on this list, number 5 on this list. So they're right there with each other, and that I don't know if they can create on their own that much. That's the question I have with him.
So I could ask other questions about other quarterbacks, but I think people can, at least for coming out, people can find that by following you. I'm going to have all the contact there.
Yeah.
I want to jump ahead 1 year.
Oh, I know who you're going to ask about.
We've seen Arch Manning playing, and everybody on the site is going crazy that the Giants are just going to wait that next year to try to get Arch Manning. That being said, leave that to the side. What have you seen of his play so far? And kind of, obviously unbelievably early, but we've got enough game now that we've seen him play to what does he have going for him? What's the difference between him and his 2 uncles? Because he clearly has a little bit of a different athletic ability. And then kind of, what do you expect to see from him on a go forward?
Crazy to me that he went to Texas. It just is, because he was blocked there from playing early on. And the Manning family, though, they know quarterback play. They know quarterback development. And I do now, looking back on it, was saying, hey, this is a good decision. Why? Because he did not get rushed into action. It's one of the biggest issues in football, pro and college, is you want these new guys to be studs right away, because it happens 1 out of every 7 guys. Hey, maybe we got the next one. You rush them into action and everything gets ruined. So I'm glad he redshirted last year. And I'm glad that he's sitting behind Quinn Ewers, who I just read today is going to be starting against Oklahoma. But I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a little bit more Arch Manning. I'm going to tie him to a previous situation where this was similar. But, Ewers, one of the trends about him is he gets hurt a lot. He's been hurt as a senior in high school, his first year at Texas, his second year at Texas, now his 3rd year at Texas. So that's probably a good situation for him to be in. It's almost inevitable that he's going to get to the field. Skill set, talent, he is 10 times the athlete that Peyton and Eli were. And those guys did not make their money with their legs. They made it with their arm and their brain and their ability to play big in big moments. But Arch Manning is a legitimate two-way threat. The guy can run. He can really move. Footwork, quickness, agility, and also runaway speed. The quick trigger to his arm, the guy can go through his reads and just see something on the left-hand corner of his screen and just make the decision on the fly to throw it 50, 60 yards on a dime. Like, that is just natural God-given arm talent that does not come around often. And then you combine, I mean, I am a pedigree guy. I like the guys grew up around the game. He probably has a deeper level of understanding of reads and coverages and routes and calling signals at the point of attack that a lot of these guys just are never going to have. And that's something that he kind of grew up in. I think that's a big trait. No question about it. Will be a number one type pick. You know, if you remember back when Alabama had Jalen Hurts and Tua as a freshman, and at the end of the year, it kind of said, hey, Jalen, you got us here. It's Tua time. That's where I feel like this could end up, because to me, every week that passes, Arch Manning is the better quarterback for that team. And I like Ewers. I'm actually higher on Ewers than most. I'm just worried about the durability.
Yeah, I'm wondering, the door is open, right?
Yeah.
Like if he struggles in a game, let's say Oklahoma, let's say if he's having an off game, how quickly is that now, the yank is going to be there and Arch is going to play. So I kind of like that. I was curious because I know a lot of folks, are asking. He's not eligible this year, but it's a guy that we're looking for. Just real quick then, just anybody else quarterback wise and I don't want to, because I want people to go find your stuff, but just one person, maybe not necessarily the next one after the couple we've talked about, but just somebody that's caught your attention. You're like, hey, maybe keep an eye on this guy.
Do I want to go risky or not? Let's do it. Let's be crazy on a Monday night. There's a quarterback. He's going to be a day 3 guy, so we're not going to see a rise here. But Max Brosmer from Minnesota, 6'1", 224. He played at New Hampshire for 4 years, setting records there. He led the FCS in yards in 2023, yards per game, total offense. He was second in touchdowns. He was dominating the FCS last year. He goes to Minnesota. He's got the arm. He's got the anticipation. He's a tough dude. I like that 225-pound frame. I've seen a few of their games so far. He's definitely playing with a lesser deck of cards than what he's up against, and he's still rising to the occasion. That's a name just to keep on an eye on in this like pre-draft process. You'll probably get hooked up with the Shrine Bowl or something like that and go ball out there, hopefully. But the other name that I'm still holding on to as a potential first rounder, because I think he's got the best arm talent, Josh Allen caliber arm talent and frame, is Drew Allar from Penn State.
Yep.
It's just, he's not putting it together on a weekly basis, but he is protecting the football. And that's something that means something to him. He was setting records with how well he protected the football early in his career. And he'll have some huge games coming up where he did not respond well last year. That's okay. Let's see how you respond and bounce back the next time you face off in Ohio State, Michigan. If this team keeps winning games, then maybe even some of the toughest defenses in football.
Yeah, he's a lightning rod with fans, that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I would be too. I don't pay attention to Penn State fans at all. I don't know what they think. I did golf with someone yesterday. I was like, what do you think about Aller? And he goes, I hate him.
I know there'll be a mass. I don't want to make fun of that. Let's just say there would be a practical city on fire if the Giants were to draft Riley Leonard.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't need any more previous Duke connections in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, he's not the guy. I've seen enough of him, and I really did want to like him last year. I really did. But between what I saw last year and early this season, he's going to be a day 3 quarterback.
Well, I think unless Eric, you had another question.
No, we can take up so much time. I did want to just real quickly, and I already mentioned this to him in the email. Was given the stake, the game, the attention it was getting, that 17-year-old wide receiver to make that play, make those plays that he made,
plays, yeah.
With the play that he made at the end of the game for a 17-year-old kid. My goodness, that was that. I don't know if I don't know that, to me, that was one of the biggest plays in college football I've seen in recent memory from a kid young. That guy
against guys are going to be playing in the NFL too. Like he made them look silly. And just think this kid was playing high school football this time last year. It's there's 2 receivers in this class right now that I think I told you in that
Ohio
email
State guy.
that if they allowed freshmen to get drafted, they'd be first round picks and maybe even wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 in next year's class. They're that good. And I'll put a prediction out there now that I think they'll play this year, next year, and they'll probably Jamar Chase their junior season and sit out for that year and still be top 5 picks because I don't agree or disagree with it. They're so dominant so early. It's one thing to dominate like this at the end of the freshman year, but it's week 1, week 2, and they look literally like the best football players on the field amongst 2 teams that have multiple first round picks already.
Oh, that move he made after the catch to me.
What was that?
That was
it looked like a glitch in a video game.
Yes, it did. I was going to say it looked like a video game to me. So that was amazing.
This might sound a little off the wall, random, but since you guys kind of led into the discussion, I'm just curious. Any thought that the NFL at some point might pull back on this
3-year
kind of? The NIL has made it so that guys are like, well, I don't know, I'll just stay a little bit longer.
Yeah.
For guys that we're talking about for that kind of talent, I'm beginning to wonder if that whole 3 years straight up from high school might go away in the near future.
Oh, geez.
I think 1 year would be too soon. I could see it changing to 2. You get these guys, but if college football and these college football programs, which are pretty influential, more influential than I think people think, especially with these conferences and all these new alignments, they have a lot of power in this, and they don't want to lose those guys. Their ratings are almost not as much, but are as impactful to these television networks as the NFL. And to lose these guys after 2 years could be a tough sell. And it's going to also turn into what the NBA has turned into, in that some of these guys are, they're getting bad advice from bad people, these so-called experts online saying, hey, you'll be a first-round pick. They leave their college education after a year or 2, and, they go undrafted. It happens to this day. The guys get bad advice from someone and they leave school too early and they're just not ready for the NFL. So I only would see it going to a 2-year window rather than a 3-year window, but never after 1.
Yeah, and then you're giving millions of dollars to a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
They're getting millions of dollars now.
Yeah.
That's the scary part. They're getting millions of dollars to go all over the place.
It's a weird landscape right now.
The situation in UNLV is probably one of the crazier ones I've seen.
Yep.
Anyway, NIL, it's either going to be regulated far more than it currently is, or it has the potential of really just making a lot of this immaterial.
Yeah. It's a moving target, and you have to evolve with the system. And it's even changed a lot since I've been doing it. And I don't see this once money gets involved, and everything changes.
Awesome. Well, I want to appreciate that. First off, thank you again, Cy, for taking the time. Of course, we love your info. Folks love your info. Again, we've talked about it before. Still, the highest viewed episode we've done was the review against Houston, for God's sakes. But I think it had to do with you, and not because of Houston. So we appreciate it.
We appreciate it. We kept you longer than we said. So
it's okay, guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to be watching football the rest of the night. So we're
nice. So we'll finish it up here. I'll end the episode here, and appreciate you. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll catch you again in the near future. And thanks for watching.
Thank you, guys.